You're watching Hot Walk Academy. My name is Mingjin Tong. Today we are making something called Ma Yi Shang Shu, which means ants climbing a tree. Let's cook. Now this is a very classic Chinese dish. You can find it in Taiwan, you can find it in China. And let me walk through quick ingredients. We've got soy sauce for our beef. This is just canola oil that we will use a little bit of just to get the aromatics going. I've got some chicken broth that's gonna help loosen up the dish and cook the noodles a little bit at the end. Speaking of noodles, today we are using mung bean vermicelli. So if you've not used this before, this item is also called glass noodles. And I've already cooked some up. It's not cooked all the way through, but you can see why it's called a glass noodle. When it's cooked all the way through and it's in liquid, you almost can't see it at all. Completely clear. You'll often find these as an ingredient in egg rolls, like in Southeast Asian cooking. Vietnamese egg rolls will oftentimes have mung bean noodles. You can find it in this pink netting. This particular item is from Taiwan. You can find it at your local Asian grocery store. We have ground beef. Now this ground beef is a little bit fattier than I'd recommend. Get a 93.7 or a 90.10. 80-20, which is what this is gonna be a little bit too fat. But we're gonna use it and try it and see what happens. For our aromatics, we're gonna use our holy trinity, scallions, and garlic, and our ginger root. And as a topping, we're gonna put some fresh cilantro on there just to give it a bit of freshness at the very end. And then of course we have our white pepper, and we have our coarse kosher salt. So let's start by preparing our aromatics. You've seen me do this before if you watched Hot Walk at all. But for your ginger root, I recommend a ceramic grater. Just keep that down, and you don't even need to peel it. You can basically just rub that, and look at how fast that just breaks down that ginger root so incredibly quickly. And you want all that juice to kind of stay right there inside of your bowl. And really that is all I need. What's nice about ginger root is it comes with its own little brush on the inside. You can use that to clean your grater. You don't necessarily want to use a lot of it. I've got about a tablespoon of my ginger root. So that's really all I need for that. For our garlic, what I'm gonna do, and just gonna use a few cloves here, probably 3 or 4 cloves is really all I need. So just break that apart. Let's get rid of some of this paper. And let's just give it a quick smash. You can do it with your knife. You can do it with your scraper if you want. If you've got a nice bench scraper, that's another way to do it. Just put that on there and just give it a crunch. Makes it easy to peel. And then we're gonna cut this. Now, for your garlic, you want it to be pretty small. You're not necessarily going for chunks of garlic that you're eating. The garlic is really gonna function as a flavoring agent. That's why we also did the ginger root so small, was because we don't want to eat big pieces of ginger root. We don't want the fiber of the ginger root in our dish either. So for here, let's go ahead and get this chopped up nice and small. Just gonna mince it. And it can be pretty rough. You don't have to be very careful with it. Doesn't really matter how you do it. You just don't want big pieces of garlic in with your beef. That is gonna be good enough for us. Maybe just a little bit more. All right, let's get that in our aromatics bowl. After you've got your ginger and your garlic done, we do want some scallions. Same thing here. We don't necessarily want big pieces of scallion in our dish, but I do like to have the green in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it just like this. Just chop it up pretty small, not necessarily a mince. It's going to cook and break down. So even if you go big, it will kind of melt into there. All right, we've got all of our aromatics done. Let's also do our cilantro for a topping at the very end. So for our cilantro, I'm gonna remove the end. And again, this is just a garnish at the end of the dish. So we're gonna chop it up. You can do any size you like, doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna kind of rough cut it here. and set that off to the side. And we are ready to cook. So we've got our aromatics ready. We've got our garnish ready. And let's go ahead and add some heat here to our pan. So I'm using a 14-inch carbon steel wok, excuse me. And because this is not a super high heat dish, we're just cooking on this little butane burner. This one I picked up in Korea. I think it was $19.99. I was in Korea for Y2K, so I remember that very well. Let's go ahead and let our pan heat, and all you're gonna do is brown this ground beef. So brown your ground beef. We are gonna drain off some of the fat in a little bit. Let's go ahead and get that in there. Now, you might wonder, we always start with aromatics and oil first. Why aren't we doing that this time? And it's because I don't want to add really any additional oil. Now, I have it here in case I need it, but because this is such a fatty beef, I'm gonna drain most of it and use some of the fat to sizzle and bloom my aromatics when the time comes. But for now, let's go ahead and brown this. I'm gonna add just a touch of salt. And let's let that go ahead and continue to brown. Now this dish, this is the way it's gonna go. We're gonna brown it, we're gonna drain it, we're gonna add the aromatics in and let that fully cook. This is a way of, we're gonna be adding in. Oftentimes, if you've watched my other videos, we put the protein in, we take it out after it's par cooked, then we cook our vegetables and add the protein back in. That's kind of a two-step method. This is just a one-step method where we are just browning and we're gonna be adding everything in as we go. We're not gonna be removing anything from the wok itself. And I want this probably about 90% done before I add my aromatics in. So the aromatics will still remain fresh and in case of scallions, a little bit crisp as well. Hopefully not too crisp. I do want them to kind of melt into the beef. All right, that's looking pretty good. That's probably about 80%. Now, one thing I'm noticing is even though the ground beef was quite marbled when I put it in, it's actually looking not too bad, not too fatty. So let's take a look. I'm gonna let some of the water boil off here. I'll keep chopping that up. Now, one reason I'm cutting it so small is the name of the dish is Ma Yi, which is ants, okay? So in other words, this dish is going to be little bits of ground beef climbing up the noodles. That's why we call it ants climbing a tree. So we want to chop the ground beef nice and small so it resembles little bugs climbing up the tree. And if that grosses you out, I'm sorry. Okay, so it's not bad. I don't actually see a lot of fat. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and take advantage of the fact that the wok is slanted on all sides. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push my beef all around the perimeter and I'm gonna let that fat come down into the center. Now, you'll see where it's sizzling. And let me point out, we have protein, that's the beef. We have water vapor, and that's what's leaving the pan right now. And we have fat, and that's what's sizzling the remainder of the water at the bottom. I can actually take advantage of that fat by using it for my aromatics. So let's go ahead and add all of our aromatics right into that fat down there at the bottom. And again, most of my heat is on the bottom of my wok, which means my beef on the side is totally fine right now. I'm gonna go ahead and move my aromatics around in that fat and let that bloom in the bottom of my wok. Now, I actually, believe it or not, don't even have enough fat. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil to help lubricate and sizzle those aromatics. Just a little bit there. And I'm also gonna take advantage now of this time to season my ground beef with a little bit of soy sauce. I don't want a lot, just a little bit. It's just really smelling great. You really want to take the time to let your aromatics bloom. Let them achieve their full flavor potential by spending time in that fat under that heat. I'm gonna add just a pinch of salt to my aromatics. And white pepper, it can become tired under heat quickly. So we're gonna add this at the very, very end. We're not gonna forget it though. All right, my aromatics are looking great. My scallions are soft. It's got a great smell out here. So let's go ahead and reincorporate all that beef right in. And we're almost done, believe it or not, with this dish. So now we've got our aromatics and our beef. The beef is fully cooked, all the way cooked through. You can eat it now if you wanted to. But this is the part now that we are gonna add our cooked noodles. So this is the mung bean vermicelli. And what I want to do is I want to add it in, but there's not very much liquid in it. Look, it's kind of like a clump because it's been sitting here for a little while. So that's where the chicken broth comes in. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of broth first. That gives me something to work with when I put my noodles in. Let's go ahead and add our noodles. And now I'm just going to gently lift and incorporate that fat, that liquid, and of course those bits of ants into my dish. All right, and you can see how the noodles really loosened up because I have all that moisture in there. Let's go ahead and finish up our dish here. I'm just gonna add a little bit more salt. I know I didn't add a lot of sodium this time, so just do another pinch of salt. I might do a little bit more soy sauce. I like the soy sauce to hit the hot pan. When it does that, the soy sauce changes flavors. It becomes a little bit roasted. And let's mix it. Let's go ahead and kill the fire, and we'll add a little bit of our white pepper. Let's give that a toss. Oh, that smells amazing. All right, and let's go ahead and plate it. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna, so you can see now, we call it Ma Yi Shang Shu. You see that? Ants climbing a tree. Does it look like it? Let's go ahead and get that in. And I like to get all my noodles in there first. You can see all the ants climbing the tree now. Oh. And then we will get the rest of the beef on top. All right, and of course, let's go ahead and top that with our cilantro. And you are ready to eat. Try it, let us know what you think. Please share, like, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.